job, or you need to quit weed for your education, you need to quit for your physical health, or you need to quit for your mental health. Maybe you feel like marijuana is changing your personality, or the most common reason is you feel like marijuana is holding you back in life. That is the most common reason people quit marijuana. Apathy is holding you back. Apathy is that whole attitude of I don't care, I don't give a shit. And the problem with that is you do care, you do give a shit, but it's marijuana that makes you not care. End result is you end up with a life you don't care about. And as soon as you stop smoking and wake up, which will happen one day, it comes down on you like a ton of bricks and it causes depression, all sorts of things, and most likely it makes you go back to marijuana. So you've probably recognized this in your own life and it makes you want to quit weed. But you have trouble quitting weed, and there's a ton of reasons why. You may have trouble sleeping without weed, especially that first night. People just sort of stare at the ceiling all night. They don't actually get some sleep, and that can be an excuse people use to go back to marijuana. And if you smoke weed every single day, you're kind of doing it just to feel normal. So as soon as you take it away, you don't feel normal anymore. A lot of people feel socially alone without weed, and this is usually because every one of your friends smokes weed, so it's hard to find that new tribe. Eating at regular times without weed can be very difficult. You don't feel hungry when you probably should. Stronger emotions without weed. Social anxiety, maybe you feel angry. Maybe you have that short temper, you're a bit more snappy. Depression. There's mental fog when you quit weed. And basically the problem here is it's fine to be a little bit dopey, a little bit slow, a little bit behind the times when you're stoned. But when you stop smoking weed, you want to get that clarity, focus, and motivation back very quickly. And sometimes it doesn't happen as quick as you think. So I hear about a lot of people that smoke weed and, 2 weeks, a month, a couple months after they quit, they still have that mental haziness, that mental fog. And it can be difficult, right? Because smoking marijuana relieves these problems straight away. And one of the biggest problems people have is replacing marijuana with another habit. If you have a compulsive, addictive personality, that can be the reason you've got this marijuana problem. But you actually need to replace a marijuana habit. You can't just quit something that you feel psychologically addicted to. And it's really important that you don't replace marijuana with something worse, like alcohol, cigarettes, or any other harder drugs. And please don't think I'm having a go at you, I did this. I smoked weed for 13 years, every single day. I also sold weed. I was the guy with weed. So if I didn't have it, nobody had it, right? And it didn't cost me anything. So I just developed this massive marijuana habit. And it was only when I tried to quit that I realized I couldn't. And it was literally the last 3 years of smoking that I was trying to quit weed. And the weirdest thing, back in the day I would have never imagined that I would end up helping people quit weed, because I made so many people not only start smoking weed, but also really up their habit and start smoking weed every single day. That's why I now help people quit weed. It's kind of a karma thing for me. So far we've helped over 10,000 people quit weed, and I just hope that I help more people quit weed than I helped get into weed back in the day. That's my goal. So I know what it's like to kind of have mixed feelings about quitting marijuana. Of course you're going to have mixed feelings. You want to quit because you're being held back in so many different ways. But at the same time, you are the average of the closest 5 people you hang around. Every single thing about you is defined by the closest 5 people you hang around. If you hang around 5 fat guys all day, you're going to end up fat. If you hang around 5 rich guys all day, you're going to end up rich. If you end up hanging around 5 stoners all day, every single day, what do you think you're going to become? So how do we help you quit weed? What we do is change the belief system you have about marijuana so that you can gain control. And this isn't something about willpower. Willpower does not work. It doesn't work. You can't consistently, forever, for the rest of your life, go against something you want to do. Here's the reason why willpower doesn't work. Willpower is ego depletion, or willpower depletion. And what it means is willpower uses a certain type of energy in your body and you have a limited supply of it. Using willpower, controlling your thoughts, controlling your emotions, controlling your actions, controlling your decisions, controlling your temptations, they draw on the same resource. They take the same energy and you have a limited supply of that type of energy. So as you stack these on top of each other, and you attempt to overcome many temptations that all use the same type of energy, you run out. There's science behind this. There's many scientific tests they have done. For example, after people resist temptation, they are more likely to give up on a difficult puzzle. Why? Because they feel more stress and they are less happy. We're also not going to use the technique of avoidance. It's easy to smoke weed if you have no weed, but you can't use the avoidance tactic. Eminem says, marijuana is everywhere. Where were you brought up? You know, a lot of people write to me saying, Seb, I just need to move to another city for 3 months or go on holiday for 6 weeks or whatever they say. But that's escapism. It's not going to work because you cannot avoid marijuana for life. You know, I've often said when I smoke weed, you could drop me in any city in the world and probably that day I'll find some weed. I don't even think a language barrier could have stopped me when I smoked weed. What else is stopping you? Well, if you're still brainwashed by all your stoner buddies and you think marijuana has no physical symptoms when you quit, allow me to clarify it. Marijuana is psychologically addictive, but it's stronger than your average psychological addiction because it changes your mental state instantly and reliably. It is not very physically addictive. But the reason it's so difficult to quit for some people is because it gives you physical symptoms when you quit. You know, do you have trouble sleeping when you quit marijuana? Do you have trouble eating at regular times when you quit marijuana? These are the physical symptoms that sometimes people use as excuses to go back to marijuana. So if you have trouble quitting weed, you need to deal with the psychological addiction. But there's also this physical side, and you can overcome the physical side if you flush your body of the built-up metabolites of marijuana. And a marijuana detox is the easiest way to deal with physical symptoms when you quit. So if you would just like to quit weed and move forward in your life, get ahead with all these things that marijuana is stopping you from doing, whether it's putting a ceiling on your income, whether it's halting you in your career or your education, or your relationships are just shallow and limited. You know, there is a million different mild problems with marijuana, whether it's stealing your motivation every day or changing your personality to its core. If you're having trouble finding the damn keys, if you're one of these forgetful sort of people and that's your reputation and that's who you've become, I want you to not worry about it. As soon as you stop smoking marijuana and it's out of your system, your memory will bounce back to 99% of what it was before you started smoking weed. The only reason it won't be 100% is because you're older now. But we have tons of techniques to make your memory even better than it was before you started smoking weed. If you have trouble handling anger, sadness, depression, you know, you've used marijuana to handle emotions and now you get rid of it and all these things flood in. You have a very low emotional intelligence. How's your stress? Marijuana stops you from developing stress tolerance. And it's the same thing as emotional intelligence. You're using marijuana to deal with stress, so when you take the weed away, you have a harder time dealing with the stress. It always makes sense. Whatever marijuana gives you with one hand in the short term, it is taking away from you with the other hand in the long term. If marijuana is overtaking these important things in your life, you absolutely need to stop smoking the stuff. By the way, how to quit weed without withdrawals or sleepless nights, or how to easily control your marijuana habit? Use Quit Marijuana the Complete Guide. It absolutely has higher success rates than 12-step programs put on by secretive organizations like Narcotics Anonymous, you know the ones. They don't work because you just have meetings with people that smoke weed. You're hanging around stoners. And what does that mean? We know what it means. And that's why the Complete Guide is more successful. You can do this in your own time, from home, without hanging around stoners. Click the link below to check it out. It diffuses your psychological triggers. And most importantly, it will stop your cravings for weed. Look it up, do your research on it. There is tons of positive. Sent out a survey to 100 people that smoke weed, asking them just 10 questions. And this is something we do all the time. But today I thought it might be interesting if we go through the results together. The first question is, do you now or did you ever consider yourself addicted to weed? 98 people answered it, and 94% or 93 of them said yes, and only 5 said no. So that gives you an idea of who these people are to begin with, because if you were to go and ask any random person on the street, no would be a lot bigger, right? If I was to only ask my customers, you would have this at 100%. So second question is, how often do you or did you on average smoke weed? Less than a week, 1 to 3 days, 4 to 6 days, once a day was 12, 48 said more than once a day, and 27 said all day every day. So if we add these two together, you've got about 75% of people that smoke every single day. There's the numbers broken down. Question 3, have you quit? Only 45 people have quit weed, and we still have 48 people to go. Now this is where it gets interesting. What is the main pain you would have experienced or will experience if you never quit weed? And we have a whole bunch of answers here that I'm just going to go through one at a time. So I'm just going to read them out. Depression, anxiety, early death, shit job. It blocks myself from being fully myself. It stops me from reaching my goals and dreams. Cheap life, depression. So you can see we start getting some patterns. None of these people have seen anyone else's answer, and a lot of them are giving the same answers. So this is where we get a lot of insight. The anticipation of the pain. The pain itself is easy, a few sleepless nights, some headaches, it's all in the mind. I would experience not nearly as a fulfilling life work-wise, my goals, and socially, I get the feeling. And know in the back of my mind that I would be moving forward a great deal more if I didn't smoke weed every day. The damage to my self-esteem, confidence of knowing that I need to quit weed in order to gain greater perspective on my life and advance it, but getting stoned anyway. One of the many pains I'd experience is the pain of sobriety. Traction in life towards a steady, concerted effort to achieve set goals. Not fulfilling my potential in life. I'm far from the weed already do 65 days, and since the first day I'm suffering different types of symptoms, most of them psychological, such as anxiety, bad thoughts, headaches, and others. I've never been through something so intense and bad in my life. The main pain is missing the feeling of euphoria that I used to feel after my first joint of the day. The feeling of carelessness and happiness that comes with the first joint. The main pain would be continuous emotional pain that never gets dealt with. The weed suppresses it all. Paranoia and distorted thoughts. OSA? Oh, overthinking and lack of action because of it. Analysis paralysis. Psychological addiction, it's a trap. Don't progress on activities, can't progress socially, emotionally, etc. Do not able to handle life situations, perceive the world in a false, modified way, waste my capacities. Not being able to cope with certain situations, every day is the same, dealing with all aspects of human life, natural, sober pains were numbed away with THC fadeness. Being the most unproductive person in the world and losing an extremely profitable business. Ouch. Blaming that life is shit without taking action. Isolation and lack of energy. Paranoia issues would have remained, leading to non-development of social circles and family. Plus I knew I should be stopping, so every time I lit one up, I'd mentally berate myself. Lack of sleep, lack of contentment, loss of appetite, sleep, mood swings, and sense of intense despair. I would become totally antisocial. Depression and anxiety, trouble sleeping. Can we see patterns, guys? Social, depression, anxiety, sleeping. These are all coming up time and time again. It's more of a habit than anything. I enjoy spliffs, and when I only smoke spliffs, I feel in control still. Although the reality is, I'm probably not. Bongs or shotties were where my weakness lay. I have moved house to try to escape its grip. And moving house is a weird one. It is good to change your environment, but you got to make sure you're not just doing the whole escapism thing, because wherever you go, there's going to be weed. Weed is everywhere. Regret of not knowing what or who I would have been if I quit. That's a really big one. Insomnia, self-realization, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. My mental well-being, wanting to quit but feeling I was unable to. Thank you for all your help in making me realize I could in fact quit. None. No motivation. Always wondering what if. I believe you called it shooting. I did. Shooting all over yourself. The money. Continue to feel like a slave to weed. Failure in life. Bad role model for my kid. Regret that I didn't achieve what I'm capable of. Loss of relationships. Lack of motivation. Not being present and not dealing with my feelings. Smoking contaminated low-quality marijuana and being unable to find anyone who understands that there is no consistency. I understand, buddy, but I don't care. Not knowing what I've missed out on in life by being in a daze all day. Physical and mental health problems. Guilt, depression, hazing, unfulfilled life. Shortened life. Not there for my family. Not achieving anything. I'll never get to be who I really am. Feeling like I'm not in control of my life, being a slave to the weed addiction, having life slip away in a foggy daze, not connecting with my wife and kids, my comfort zone, my solo time. I feel healthier in body and to a degree mind without it. Never moving forward, not reaching my goals, being a slave to dependency, missing the feeling, the relaxed mood, how much better music sounds. I will not have a fulfilling life. I'll float through my life not remembering, not doing. I'm losing my ability to give and receive true love. If I don't quit, my disease of marijuana addiction will continue to isolate me so much from society and any loving relationship that I will eventually be alone. No friends, just people I know or have a business connection to. Weed calms me down, lessens stress. Never meeting the woman of my dreams. Not fulfilling my potential to say the least. Not being able to relate to others in a realistic way. Negative life feedback. Financial freedom will never be available to me. Waste of time. Change of lifestyle, boredom, trying to relax and sleep, feeling nothing, no joy, short-term memory loss. The pain was all in the mind. Smoking was an avoidance, albeit a temporary one to deal with things. Big things like relationships, career choices, to small things like getting an MOT for my car. The main pain was having to face dealing with things, not having an out of smoking that day and it all going away. Success at work, reaching full potential, making use of skills and training. I won't ever become the person that I want to be. Facing life and myself without a crutch. Physical and emotional distress, clarity, personal isolation, not being able to manifest my dreams into reality. Reduced intelligence, not really sure. Sacrificing my family and career. Boredom, the sense that I'm not being as fully myself as I'd like to be. Knowing that I'm not optimal and that I could end up with lung cancer. Doing nothing with my life. Dead living. Losing my driver's license and my memory and normal functionality of my brain. Question 5. What specific problems do you or did you experience when you quit weed or last tried to quit weed? You can choose one or more or add your own below. Well, from this graph we can see that the smallest one is trouble eating regularly and feeling a bit sick. The top ones we can see are feeling a bit depressed, and we did see that a whole bunch of times. And trouble sleeping naturally, we've seen that a lot of times. Feeling something is missing. So they're the main ones, but we also have some comments here. 29 comments. Anger, angry and obsessed. The headaches can be pretty bad at some points. See, some people mention headaches and some people don't. Trouble drinking alcohol on the weekends without wanting to finish it off with weed. I had to quit both primarily, which is what I recommend you do, and when initially quitting, I had trouble foregoing the quick fix change of state that marijuana provided, and I had to be alone with my thoughts and emotions. You had to be alone with your thoughts and emotions. Sweating at night, and I had a headache for about 2 weeks. One of the main problems I faced was my friends, the people I hung out with. They didn't want to lose a smoking buddy, therefore they would pull me down and make it very hard for me to quit. They would discourage the idea of quitting and start telling me that I should just cut down and not quit. I tried cutting down, but that never works. The best way for me to quit was to let go of the friends. For me, the pain of smoking weed was higher than the pleasure of having those friends. Very articulate thought. I was really depressed and really sick. Being around good, legit mates that like to smoke without giving in. Sweating. Always anxious and uncomfortably restless. Bored. Stressed out over business or family issues. Used it as a crutch to cure what ails me. Waking up early at 4 a.m. and not being able to go back to sleep. Irritable and impatient. Accepting that I can never touch weed again. The first few attempts I thought as soon as I'm not addicted, I could go back to smoking on the odd occasion. And that's the long-term trap, we call that, which is when you've forgotten how much you wanted to quit and you go back anyway. Wild thought streams, detoxing of insanity, psychedelic thought patterns, not taking anything seriously. Nothing, quit almost cold turkey and no trouble at all. Short fused, goofy, unfocused, paranoid, uncomfortable in my own skin. Saying stupid things, easily winded. Vision and mind blurred. Vivid dreams that disturb my sleep and piss me off when I wake up. Quick to temper and trouble sleeping, having a strategy in place to deal with these things was a lifesaver. Breaking the habit, eating more, anxiety. Paranoia, racing thoughts, headaches, slight body aches, and I am bothered that it will stay in my system for so long after quitting. I am afraid. Question 6. Did you or do you mix your weed with tobacco? Yes, mostly tobacco was only 11. Yeah, about half-half was 15. And yeah, but mostly weed was 14%, or 14, same thing. And 60% was no tobacco in my weed. So most people here don't even put tobacco in their weed, and they're still having problems quitting. So it's not tobacco. How did you or do you smoke your weed? Most of the time. Joint, paper, blunt, cigarette style was 46. Pipe or hash pipe, anything that doesn't have water, was 26. And bong, anything that you smoke that is a pipe that has water in it, that was 25. And just ate it, one dude. There's one guy here that just eats his weed. I hope he's got money. What mostly made you quit weed or want to quit weed? You can choose one or more or add your own below. For legal reasons was by far the least, only 13, and most was 81% for my mental health.
Other high ones included change in lifestyle, physical health, but by far the biggest one was mental health. And again, we've got some comments here. My motivation is at an all-time high. Without weed, I believe I most likely would have a motivation level that would take me to great things in my life. In a sense, I do feel like it holds or has held me back from things. It was overwhelming my mind. Relationship with God and Jesus. Got tired of feeling a slave to it. Could not and did not want to leave the house without my weed. There was never enough, even if I got high and didn't feel anything. Always wanted more. Spiritual reasons. I was sleepy all the time, lack of achieving goals, paranoid and always suspecting friends and family, over analyzing. Get motivated again, my daughter, to be better at everything. Sometimes when looking at an interview, I would think, I couldn't do that. Weed stops me from achieving my goals. My young kids, I don't want them anywhere near pot or pot users dealers. I hated not spending quality time with them, palming them off as much as possible so I could get back to getting stoned. To not feel like a loser drug addict. Wanting badly to be working from home like you do, Seb, and smoking weed every night is not going to get me to where I want to go. Mainly because I felt dependent and didn't want to feel that anymore. Now I'm as dependent as ever and not even thinking about quitting. For my self-confidence. It was my time. Wanting to be more conscious and present around family and my kids. I got to the point where I was rolling a joint, but I knew I didn't want to. It was a Saturday morning, and I knew smoking a J would write off the day, but I did it anyway. I had no control beyond not smoking before or during work. Once I had the first one, I was high and unable to do anything else but smoke. I never want to suffer the trauma of losing my job and hurting my family again. I want to feel safe and secure. Did you smoke alone or socially? Only one person skipped it. 85 said alone. 14 said socially. And then the last final question, what else would you like training or help with in regards to quitting weed? What other training should we be providing that we've missed? So this is probably what I'm going to go through and try and make sure we have in the future. Video examples of situations where you're tempted, support, dealing with suppressed emotions, memories that rear their heads when the ganja isn't keeping them in check. Dunno, just keep it real. I quit 3 weeks ago, but before that did a lot of surfing the web and some points you made are spot on. That helped, thanks. Calling sessions. We're going to have calling sessions and they'll be in the members area really soon. I think it's important to be encouraged to change your habits and lifestyle. In my personal case, I had to quit smoking cigarettes and even the occasional coke hit, and even change the kind of people that I associate with. When you smoke or do drugs, you think that everyone does it. That is not true. Mental health and weed. I think you are doing a great job. Very happy to see that someone is doing this. I did not purchase your program because of my financial reasons. However, I kept listening to your free videos over and over again. I guess one more way to help people would be something with a bit lower cost. I know I sound really cheap, but when you are trying to quit weed using price, another way to not quit. Hope this helps, mate. Love from Canada, and thank you so much. You are doing a great job. Let me know if you need anything else. I will, friend. That's fantastic. I quit. I still get the urge now and then, and probably will end up having a joint at some point, but I already know I'll hate the feeling now, so it's no bad thing. Need to quit ciggies now and start an exercise regime, but one step at a time, eh? It has taken months to get the weed out of my system and start feeling normal again. Maybe a forum where people can support each other while they quit. We did have a thriving forum, but it kept getting massively inundated with spam, and I just turned it off. I don't need any training anymore because I understand my behavior and I control it. Method to get through the first 10 days. I feel that if I quit weed, then I'll lose my friends. I've seen what happened to people who never experimented with drugs. They all wear shirts and ties. That scares me more than anything. Becoming normal. You don't need to wear shirts and ties. You don't have to be like them. What to do? I get bored easily and need help refocusing on the important things in life. Patience training. Learning to be compassionate towards oneself in the process of quitting. Thanks for insisting. I don't know, this is an amazing program. I'm just too scared to quit yet. Well, you need to contact me. That's terrible. I honestly can't think of anything. The service you are providing is great. Helping being able to quit smoking when your partner still wants to smoke, without having to leave them in order to be smoke free. How to stop when it's still in your house and your husband or wife still smokes. That's a good point, thank you. Help falling asleep is the biggest problem I face. Your program helped me, thank you. There is no consistency, contaminated and or grown in poor conditions. There are no easy methods to consume it without heat. You would be the same guy from that other consistency comment. I'll bet. Wish there was a patch or something to help with cravings. Hypnotherapy, NLP. It is a great program and did help me a lot. I'm at the 3 month mark. However, I am started to feel tempted again now that I've made it this long. Maybe add a program to listen to after 90 days to reinforce the decision. Thank you, Seb. Thank you. That's a fantastic idea. And we've been thinking about putting in there, 30 days to change. And that will probably be in the back end pretty soon. The instant feeling of guilt after smoking up when I know I shouldn't. I'm sure it's very common that people develop paranoia and have a hard time controlling their running minds. I found comfort in hearing other people's struggles from online blogs and forums, such as the Uncommon Forum. It can feel like a real lonely journey. Need ongoing support in times of feeling low. Willpower, haha. And I think the reason you're laughing in there is because I dig at willpower a lot. I liked your program. It helped me when I needed it. I no longer need it. I'm casual now and not very often. Sometimes months without. I go back because when I'm always working I enjoy it after work, socially mostly. Life after quitting. My main problem was running into friends that smoked and smoking with them now I live in a different town. So this is not a problem for me and has made it easier to stay clean. So that's where changing your environment can really help, but if you're doing it purely for that reason, it is more often escapism. Well, from what I see, you have pretty much every base covered. Is it possible to be so healthy I don't need weed? Got a pill for surrender? Day 1 tomorrow, thanks for holding the torch. I now need to quit smoking cigarettes. Please help me if you have a program like the weed one. Your weed program saved me. Your site is fantastic and hearing other people's stories and encouragements was great. Didn't really think about weed for months, then crisis happened and is still happening and I'm back smoking. No amount of training is going to help me right now because the weed is keeping me sane and helping me cope. You all done and are doing a great job with this program. Nothing else, the course was amazing and it changed my life for the better. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We have more customers in here than I thought there would be. Specifics in deblurring the brain. I have read forums. It can take from 4 to 11 months, but with exercise and detox habits. How to get away from wanting the outlet. Example, I don't drink and I like to have a little help relaxing at the end of the day. It was really hard for me to watch my husband and friends get to enjoy a beer or a joint and not to be able to have something like that for myself. It can also be very empowering to know that you don't need something when other people do. Nothing I could think of. Thanks for ongoing support and great understanding, sharing your personal experience of addiction to weed. I have had lots of counselling to help stop weed, but I think what you have is solid. I will say, I do love these long ones, guys. I really go through them, but they're too long for now. How to help others who need or want to quit. That's good. More ways to connect with other quitters or wannabe quitters. Social media of past and present smokers. Mentor, sponsors, someone I can turn to. Strongly advise people that if they are unsuccessful at quitting multiple times, they should seek professional help. Overcoming the mind. My son died and I started smoking again. It is my sanity. I'm sorry to hear that, mate. I have been to too many funerals in my time. My heart goes out to you. A couple notes. I did not smoke weed, but rather used a vaporizer to vaporize it. I did occasionally use your bong. Your program, along with a powerful addiction mantra, worked for me. If you want, I'll share the mantra with you. Just email me at... So that's it for the survey, guys. They're the results. I hope you enjoyed going through it with me. There were some ups and downs in there, wasn't there? If you want to do the new survey, we always have a survey open. It's at quit-weed.com/survey. And if you would like to hear more videos and more training and more free stuff from me personally, check out quit-weed.com/goods, Goods. The link for that is directly under the video.
I have a problem with pot. I don't think you're going to smoke weed once and have it change who you are completely. I just have a problem with the marijuana habit that affects 9% of daily smokers eventually. But I'm not going to go and say weed is healthy for you, or that you should smoke weed every day, like I did for well over a decade. I also think some drug laws are more dangerous than the drugs themselves. I don't think we should outlaw gambling either, and that's coming from someone who had a very serious gambling problem. So why don't I hate these things if they cause me so much harm in my life? they aren't to blame, because reality is the way reality is. Escapism doesn't work. You can't escape these things because wherever you escape to, these things are still there. You can't argue with reality, but you can change the way you are. The problem isn't with the outside world. Maybe gambling should be illegal. Maybe marijuana should be legal. We shouldn't be limited so we can learn from all experience. So if you have a problem with marijuana, you have a problem with gambling, you have a problem with alcohol or whatever, the problem isn't even lack of information you have. For example, if you want to lose weight, the information you need is eat less and run. If information was all you needed, everyone would be rich, skinny and happy. But they're not, because it's not just the information you need. There's something that holds you back. There's a resistance to change. If you're not being the person you want to be, it creates a stress called dissonance. Dissonance, new word, what is it? Dissonance is the stress you feel when your self-image and actions are different things. When the person you're being is not the person you want to be. So there's three types of sort of relationships you can have with yourself. The first one is a consonant relationship. That's where there's no dissonance. This is a belief or a thought that is consistent with your actions. A good example is if you want to quit drinking and then you go out to dinner with your friends and everyone orders alcohol and you don't want to drink, so you order water instead of alcohol. Your belief was consistent with your actions, so there's no dissonance. The second is an irrelevant relationship, and this is low dissonance. This is really common with people trying to quit smoking weed or quit alcohol or this type of thing, quit an addiction. It's an irrelevant relationship, it's low dissonance. A belief or thought that is unrelated to your action. An example of that would be you don't want to drink anymore, you go out to dinner with your friends, everyone's drinking alcohol, so you tie your shoelaces. Right? What does tying your shoelaces have to do with anything? It has nothing to do with anything. You haven't dealt with the emotional cause. You've just redirected your neural pathway or the way you deal with that emotion. And remember, emotion just energy in motion. That's all it is. And then you go to the really addictive relationship. This is a dissonant relationship. High dissonance, which means lots of stress. This is a belief or thought that is inconsistent to your actions. A good example of this is not wanting to drink when you're out, then consuming 6 tequila shots anyway. You continue doing it to yourself. So sure, every time you drink, smoke, you release bad chemicals into your body. We already know all that. But an even more effective way to put bad chemicals in your body is through negative emotions and stress. And I can tell you now that dissonance is something I see very regularly in people that are trying to quit any bad habit, even something really simple and seemingly non-addictive like marijuana. Two bad chemicals you can release often into your body are adrenaline and cortisol. Naturally, these are both good chemicals. Adrenaline is to do with fight or flight. If a bear attacks you, you want adrenaline so you have extra speed and strength. If you have a speech in the morning and you haven't prepared for it, you may release some cortisol to give you a little bit of extra stress so that you are nervous, you do have fear. You want these chemicals so that you prepare for your speech. So they can be useful chemicals, but if you release them regularly, these things kill you. They're bad chemicals. Now, what does this have to do with trying to quit an addiction or trying to change a habit, like get up and exercise every day? Well, it has a lot to do with it, because if you continue pushing stress into your body, this is affecting you on a cellular level. Every cell inside your body does three main things, and this is really, really important to know. Firstly, they receive chemicals, which is information. They just receive information. Then, as they get used to receiving certain chemicals, they will start to request the same information. They will request the same chemicals. And the third thing they do is they will multiply into more cells that ask for the same chemicals. So if you continue experiencing this dissonance, your cells in your body are going to keep receiving this stress, and then this cell in your body is going to ask for more stress, and your brain is going to interpret that signal and then seek out the behavior, the action, the drug that gives you the chemical that provides the feeling and the stress. Also, you might have a limiting belief where you believe that this action actually relieves the stress that it causes. For example, you believe you need weed to relax. or you believe gambling will solve your financial problems that it is actually causing. And this is what's affecting your decisions. We all do things for two reasons: to gain pleasure or avoid pain. That's your motivation for everything. But the way you judge it isn't logical, it's all emotion. And it's all chemicals. The main two good chemicals you'll hear about most are dopamine and serotonin. This is the difference between seeking something out because you feel the need for it and legitimately liking something. There's three ways to attract these happiness chemicals, and there's three types of happiness in general. Pleasure, which is temporary, comes from dopamine. This is sex, drugs, alcohol, gambling. Passion lasts longer than that. This is more based on serotonin. Writing, painting, self-expression. This is a happiness that lasts longer. And purpose is the longest lasting type of happiness. This is true meaning, giving back to other people, helping, leadership. This mostly comes from serotonin. Marijuana is mostly about dopamine. This could explain why a lot of long-term marijuana smokers often feel depression or anxiety related to smoking weed. When you start feeding yourself weed to try and get more dopamine into your body, it doesn't work. We know it doesn't work because you build up a tolerance to it. You need more and more weed to get the same effect. You need more alcohol to get the same effect. You need more gambling to get the same effect. You end up chasing this dopamine dream, and it doesn't exist. It's impossible to keep it up. And you'll know if this applies to you, and it probably doesn't. Most people avoid this trap, but if you do fall into this trap, you will consistently need more and more to achieve the same level of happiness. But the worst thing about this is if you keep feeding your cells adrenaline, if you keep seeking out stress, anything that puts bad chemicals in your body, your cells will not only ask for more, but they will multiply. This creates the urge to smoke weed, this creates the urge to gamble or drink alcohol, and this is where your cravings come from. Look at gambling. Nothing goes into your body with gambling, but many people are addicted to it. So sometimes you create the chemicals inside your own body. And with things like marijuana and alcohol, they also change your mental state reliably, instantly, chemically. It's real, and many people experience this, but what you need to realize is the hardest change is in the first week. And the reason is because the cells in your body are giving you cravings, asking for what they're used to. This is a good thing because this is your body changing on the inside. And if you just get through that period where it's really hard and you have feelings that are going against what you truly want, just realize that that is your body changing and you're doing what you need to do in order to change permanently. If you deny yourselves of these chemicals, you feel pain. But if you replace your activity with something else that naturally gives your cells these chemicals, like we spoke about, meditation, exercise, these things release good chemicals naturally. That's your natural reward mechanism. So deal with your body first. Stick through the hard part of 2 to 5 days. And then once your brain realizes that you can get these chemicals from other activities, it will rewire and your cravings will disappear. Ever tried to quit weed before and failed? At what moment did you fail? And this came at me in a question from a guy called Kevin. And his basic question is, every time I sit down to play Xbox, I will have a very strong feeling to smoke. How can I overcome the feeling to smoke weed when I play Xbox? These are triggers. So what we cover in this is 2 different types of triggers that you get, 2 parts of your brain that control triggers, and at the end of the video I'll give you a 4-step strategy to overcome triggers. So let's talk about the 2 different types, pattern-based and there's emotion-based. So before I start, I want to clarify, it's always to do with emotion, always. But sometimes the trigger is based on a pattern, and sometimes the trigger is based on the emotion itself. Pattern-based triggers, a thing, event, person, or place, or time, or anything that reminds you subconsciously to go and smoke weed. And they come down to pattern searching and just reacting without controlling it. So what do I mean? Oh, let me tell you some of my triggers that I had. I was a drug dealer, as you all know. So I'd go to a lot of clients' places, and it was just a trigger for me. As soon as I'd see that person's face, their face reminded me of weed. Another trigger I had, which some of you may have, a lot of you won't have, but some of you may have, was waking up. Seriously, waking up was a trigger for me. It was a morning routine. It was a pattern.
Oh, I'm awake now. Where's the weed? That's a pretty bad one, but there's plenty of them. When you've just finished dinner and you're full, your gut's full, and you feel content, some people use that as a trigger to smoke weed. So they're pattern-based triggers. So what are the emotional triggers? These are a bit different. This is a state of mind or an emotional state that puts you in a frequency that reminds you subconsciously to go and smoke weed. So let's say someone gets pulled over in their car and the police pulls them over. A lot of people have a cigarette. They're trying to calm their nerves. They believe cigarettes help them relax, and that's what they're trying to do. So I want you to picture this. Imagine this couple, and let's say one day they disagree and they do not come to a resolution. And this is an emotionally involved argument. They're both heated, right? And then suddenly the woman can't take enough and she walks outside and has a cigarette. He sits down and chops up some weed. This happens all day long and people don't even notice. So they are your triggers, either something pattern based and there's emotion based, all stupid belief systems. So let's look at your brain. There's the prefrontal cortex. We've talked about that before as Albert. And there's Rex, which is your amygdala. So what's the prefrontal cortex? Tons of animals have this, tons of animals don't have this. So some of the obvious smartest animals are monkeys, right? Chimpanzees, where we came from. But other animals have this too, like elephants and dolphins. And the thing with animals that bother to evolve this section of their brain, one thing they have is self-awareness, which means they can have self-control. And what Albert does is watches Rex, and he starts to recognize what's working. He starts looking for patterns, and he starts to fix it. And when he gets good at watching on Rex, that's called emotional intelligence. But this amygdala has problems, and if it does get problems, it stops sending the messages to Albert because it's damaged. The amygdala appears to play a role in binge drinking, smoking weed, and when it's being repeatedly damaged by abuse and then recovery, withdrawals, all of that, that signal is dampened. It's not as strong. So Albert can't read it, Albert can't learn, and you can't develop emotional intelligence. So that's what's going on. What's the 4 steps to control triggers? First, recognize the pattern. So some event, thing or person or place or anything is triggering an emotion that makes you take action to numb that feeling before you even feel it consciously. That's what happens. If you're smoking weed day to day to day and there's no logical reason and you've been doing it for years and you've tried to quit and you've failed, this is the reason. Second step, feel the emotion and name the emotion. What is Albert calling the signal that Rex is sending? We have in our vocabularies, most of us, hundreds of words to describe mostly negative emotions that we feel. So give your emotion a name. What is it? Guilt? Is it fear? Boredom? Anxiety? Loneliness? Angst? Vexed? Furious? Angry? Scared? Frustrated? Call it an emotion. Third step, discover the hidden wisdom. You just have to sit down and be with it. Be with it. Don't numb it out. We're used to seeing how we feel. We know if we're stoned or not. But there's also a lot of things we're not aware of consciously that's still going on and we're very aware of subconsciously. To the point where you take action. You actually get up, you go get your weed, you chop it up and you smoke it just to get rid of that thing, whatever it is. So next time you notice yourself doing this, just sit down and be with the feeling. This isn't meditation, this is just being with it. Trying to stay present rather than escape the present. And then pretty quickly you're going to want to get up and go and get weed, right? Because you've had your trigger. So when that feeling comes, instead of acting on it, just observe it and be with it. And you don't have to do it for long, just commit to 5 minutes. This is going to give you self-control. As you process emotions, this is what develops your vision of the world. And we're all different. We have different chemicals in us, different goals, different results, different skills, different motivations. So no one can tell you. You've got to figure it out for yourself. And if you're not getting these messages, you're not getting the wisdom, you're not developing emotional intelligence, and you may not be growing as much as you should be. And the fourth step is to reprogram or rename the feeling that you get. So after you've sat with it for 5 minutes, you might notice that the craving disappears. Cravings don't last 5 minutes, they're much shorter than that. And by the time you get to that stage, you may as well commit to another 5 or go back to what you were doing. Because the more times you do that thing that used to give you the trigger, without actually giving in to the weed temptation, the more you are reprogramming that feeling to the point where you will call it something else. It might be something a lot less mild or nothing at all, which means the trigger's gone. And by the way, this works in reverse. The words you use are so important. Instead of saying you hate something, if you just say something annoys you, it might not trigger the same feelings. Words are very powerful. It all sounds woo, doesn't it? I promise you, it sounds woo. If I told me this stuff 10 years ago, I would have said, who invited this guy? But what I'm telling you is the truth, I promise you. So try this stuff, it works, I hope it helps, and I'll talk to you again soon. Did you have any triggers that made you go smoke weed? Any things, events, people, places, times of day? Anything that reminded you subconsciously to smoke weed? I'd love to hear what it was. Please like this video if it helped you in any way. Please share this video if you... Humans think we are so clever while we always ponder what the meaning of life is and we're the only animal that can ask why. But are we really the only idiot without the answer? Eat, survive, reproduce, right? That's it. But sometimes we let stupid things get in the way like addiction, compulsive habits, self-sabotage. And this happens to smart people more often than you would think. I recently had a 50-year-old professor with degrees coming out of his ass asking me if you could shed some light on how a seemingly intelligent man like myself would possibly end up addicted to anything, especially psychological addiction. My brain would really appreciate answers. And if this is you, here is what is going on inside you. Humans kind of have two sides of us that are controlling our behavior. They probably taught you about the left and right side of your brain. This has been proven incorrect recently by science, but there really are still two sides that make up your behavior. I talk a lot about the creative side because that's feeling, and that's where control comes from. We all know that logical side of our personality that people call intelligence. These have definite answers. If you know the correct answer for a mathematical equation, you are right or wrong. So you are rewarded to develop logic. But the other side is equally or if not more important when it comes to controlling your own behavior. For now, let's just determine that there is logical and creative. And you know that smart, logical part of you, the part that you might call consciousness? Well, let's call him Albert. Albert lives inside you with a baby reptile child called Rex. So when you go to the gym or you study for that final, that was Albert's decision. But Albert is kinda old, he tires easily, he switches off, and that is when Rex takes over. So if you've ever been instantly attracted to someone, that's that non-thinking, emotion-driven Rex inside you. See, Rex is running the whole show. So your desire to survive, your desire to eat, reproduce, all the basics of pain versus pleasure that come at a basic level of life, all of that, your constant need to smoke weed, drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, gambling, all of that is Rex. So how do you control your own actions? Well, you just control Rex. Albert always needs this logical strategy. That's what I'm going to show you. But first, I'll give you two really quick examples. Let's say I see you eating a cupcake. So I want to take that cupcake out of your hand and eat it myself. Why not? Rex knows that cupcakes bring pleasure. Well, the answer to why not is Albert. Albert knows that cupcakes bring pleasure too, but he also knows a lot of other facts, like stealing is wrong and leads to pain. If I was to listen to Rex, I would just steal the cupcake. If I was to listen to Albert, I would devise a plan to get the cupcake in a socially acceptable way. Maybe I could just ask you for a little bit, or I could go and buy my own. That way I avoid a fight with you, and I also avoid developing a reputation of a thief. These are things Albert knows. Rex doesn't know any of this. So Albert's more concerned with devising a plan to get what you want, whereas Rex doesn't know how to string a plan together. He just sees a cupcake and he wants it. So that's an example of Albert controlling Rex. An example where Albert fails is if you have a psychological addiction problem. Let's say it is just smoking weed, drinking alcohol, and you know you shouldn't do it, and every single day you wake up saying, I'm not going to do it again. Well, that's Albert talking. But Albert's not in control. So later in the day, say around 4:20 in the afternoon, Albert's a bit worn down. He's not so much there, especially if you've had to make a lot of decisions or you've had to use a lot of willpower. If you're tired, if you're drunk, or stressed, emotional, angry, depressed, lonely, Rex will take over. And we know this. That's what he's there for. So the secret is to learn how Albert can control Rex. And you know the secret to controlling Rex lies in a pyramid. It's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is the logical strategy that Albert needs, all wrapped up in a bow so he can follow it. All Albert needs to do is keep above esteem level, just to have an ability to control powerful Rex. How? Get your sleep, eat well, be healthy. That's like level 1 of life. If you're not doing that, you haven't passed level 1. Okay, so then we have level 2. If you feel safe, have shelter, and control your own stress levels, your bills are all paid, you don't owe rent, or you're not in bad debt, that's stage 2. We're getting there. If you have a feeling of belonging, a legitimate social network that you can rely on, you have friends, that's stage 3. Next is esteem, not only from others but also from yourself. Only at this stage are you open to change your behavior. Rex will stop controlling you. And then on top of that, you have self-actualization. You're achieving individual potential. This is when you control your behavior legit. It won't happen automatically, but now it's possible. Okay? You can grow further than that, and you can become anything you want. You really can in this life, I'm telling you. If you learn how to control your behavior, anything is possible. Money, relationships, health, everything. But only at stage 4 will Rex stop controlling you. So Rex means well, but is just a child. At the end of the day, Rex needs Albert. If Albert isn't in charge, you'll need to level up in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you got something out of it. Please like the video if you like. It depends how much exercise you give the muscles in your legs. Exact same with your brain, the cognitive abilities you're talking about, the mental dexterity. It comes back so quickly if you train your brain to make it come back quickly. If you do nothing, it's still going to come back to where it was before, but it's going to take a lot longer than the physical side effects like trying to sleep, trying to eat, the other things that come along with quitting marijuana. Before I go into it, I just want to say 9% of daily smokers have trouble quitting. So more than likely, even if you smoke weed, this doesn't apply to you. I don't want you to start telling me, oh, no one has trouble quitting marijuana. Yes, they do. I don't want you to tell me, oh, only weak-minded people have trouble quitting marijuana. That's not true either. It is a type of personality that has a problem with weed, and it might not be you. So all I'm saying is you are a stoner. Please have an open mind. Some people might not be like you. These are the benefits that you will see when you quit weed, and it's good to be reminded of these. If any of these stand out to you, why don't you write it down? Not all of these are going to be relevant to every person, but if you write down the ones that are relevant to you, read them daily, it will completely change your perception of marijuana. And yes, for the total better. So the first reason is breathing clean and deeply. And this is such a big difference, you know. I remember when I smoked weed, I had like a phlegmy, a disgusting sort of sound in my throat when I would breathe, and that was just because I was smoking so damn much. No more coughing up tar. A lot of people that come to me literally cough up big wads of black crap because they smoke so much tar. Yes, there's tar in marijuana, guys. And that will all stop within 2 weeks of quitting marijuana. It will actually increase after you quit, but it will come out very quickly, and there's actually something you can get to make that a lot quicker, which we show you about in Quit Marijuana, the Complete Guide. You will have an increase in percentage of oxygen intake, which means you will also have a dramatic increase in your energy. This is something you don't know about until you quit. You don't realize how much energy you're supposed to have. You will have sharper mental dexterity, smoother mood transitions, increase in short-term memory, increase in stress tolerance,
So you're using marijuana to control your stress. As soon as you take weed away, you're going to feel stressed because you don't have a high stress tolerance. You're not naturally coping with your own stress. Same with emotional intelligence. As soon as you quit, you have an increase in emotional intelligence, which means when your whole life goes to shit and you lose your partner or somebody dies in your family, or you just lose your job or something terrible happens to you, you can deal with that a lot better if you're not a stoner. You'll also have tons of more free time to yourself. It's not just smoking weed that takes your time, it's chasing weed all the time, looking to score. There's so much time you're wasting as a stoner, and you're really going to see that as soon as you quit. And here's another 10. Improve diet without the munchies. Dramatic increase in confidence, no more fumbling your words. You know, a lot of people come to me and they smoke so much weed all day, every day. They're so stoned when they get to me and they can't even tell because they're always stoned. And they can't even spit out a sentence, you know? They can't structure a sentence properly. And it takes me a long time to just listen to them. And it's annoying to me and it's annoying to them as well. Maybe that's not you, right? But if it is, write it down. This is one of those reasons. Increase in life results generally. You will get further ahead as a non-stoner than as a stoner. And you can't compare your life to anyone else's. You can only compare your life results today to the person you would be if you had not smoked marijuana and the results you would have got that way. If you honestly think marijuana helps you in your life results, good for you. Increasing creativity. See, a lot of people think, me included when I smoked weed, that marijuana helps you in your creativity. But the fact of the matter is, professionals that rely on creativity for their income, so I'm talking about painters, musicians, people that really need their creative juices to flow in order to produce results in life and get paid. These are the type of people that come to me most often. And the reason they usually can't quit is because they have a limiting belief stuck in their head. They believe something that isn't true. And what they are believing is they can't produce music without marijuana. They can't write a beautiful article without marijuana. They can't paint a beautiful painting without marijuana. And as soon as we destroy that limiting belief, and it just isn't true anymore in their own mind, they quit marijuana instantly, creativity goes up, and their business skyrockets. Like I always say, ex-stoners are some of the most successful people on the planet. Right? Look at Steve Jobs, look at Richard Branson. These aren't people that smoke weed every day, like I hear in my comments from teenagers. These are people that used to smoke weed and quit. Another reason, enjoying simple pleasures in life. You actually do. You enjoy those little things a lot more. When you smoke weed, you don't even notice them. You're too busy thinking about smoking more weed. Everything tastes better without weed, and I know I'll be challenged on that due to the whole munchies thing. But it's true. Your taste buds are dulled when you smoke a lot of marijuana. That's true. It's the same for someone that smokes cigarettes. They can hardly taste a thing. By the way, the munchies, what they are, is there's a valve at the top of your stomach that closes off, technically called a sphincter, right? Like your a-hole. And when that feels pressure, it sends to your brain a signal that you're full, which means you no longer want to eat food. When you get the munchies, that signal turns off. Not only that, but your metabolism is increased, which means you can eat a lot more. But it's not healthy. You're actually stretching your stomach full of stuff that isn't even good for you. And it actually can create heartburn too, because that valve needs to stretch open, which means the strong acids in your stomach can now come up the pipe out of your stomach and it can cause heartburn. I'm just saying. Increase body and chest size. This is good for boys and girls, right? Everybody wants a bigger chest. And if you smoke marijuana, you end up scrawnier. There's a lot of obese stoners as well, and there's a lot of skinny stoners. What there isn't a lot of is aerobic fit stoners. Big bodies, toned bodies. You don't see that so much with stoners. You'll also have an increased humility and an ability to relax. If you think marijuana helps you relax, what you actually think is you need a tool to help you relax. You need something outside yourself to help you relax. And what it means is when you don't have that tool, when you don't have marijuana, you can't relax. And this is really unhealthy for you. That will increase your stress levels. And stress is one of the major factors to increase the acidity levels of your body. If you look at an acidity pH level and did an average of everybody you know, right? You tested everybody's pH levels. Most people you know are going to be well too acidic. In the world we live in today with stress, everyone eats crap. Everybody has an acidic body. But if you are not able to relax on your own accord and you're using a tool to help you relax, not only is that going to increase the acidity levels in your body, but just smoking marijuana is also adding toxins into your body, which is going to increase the acidity levels further. If you don't believe me, test your acid levels. I'll bet they're off the charts. Number 20 is the ability to sleep and wake up more easily. And if you think marijuana helps you sleep, it's the same as all of these things, man. Whatever marijuana gives you with one hand, it takes away with the other hand in the long term. So a lot of people think, I can't sleep, I need to smoke weed so now I can sleep. You're not sleeping, you're just going through the cycle you're used to. You're basically passing out, and you wake up in the morning burnt out. What you're supposed to do is wake up in the morning with abundant energy. That's how it is supposed to work. Stoners don't even know what I'm talking about. Number 21 is the no BS risk of legal problems, and it is bullshit. Personally, I think marijuana should be legal. If alcohol is legal, marijuana should be legal. But I still think marijuana has a place in our society. What I see a problem with is people that cannot leave weed alone. 22, you'll have less risk of health problems. That is a fact. Everyone always tells me about how marijuana can help stopping cancer spreading through your body. How about don't get cancer? There's a good start. And marijuana stopping cancer spreading through your body, it's kind of a technicality why it works. It does work. It is true. But unless you're someone with cancer, there is no point to start smoking marijuana. And even if you do have cancer, there's a ton of other things that need to go into that equation before you decide it's good for you, right? 23, no wasting time scoring. Man, it just takes your whole day looking for the dealer sometimes, and then they're out of weed, and then you're panicky, and you check the carpet and under the bloody rug for weed. You're looking for a nugget. It's a horrible way to live, man. You don't have to worry about any of this stuff when you quit. Deeper relationships with everyone. This is just true. When you meet a stranger, you're easily going to talk to them when you're not a marijuana smoker, right? Not only with just strangers, but with your friends as well. You're actually going to have closer relationships with your friends, with your partner, with anyone and everything that comes up. Increased money. Even dealers I put here. Look, man, I used to sell marijuana, and I used to sell a lot of marijuana. And I used to make a lot of money, but it's nothing to do with the money you earn. It's to do with the long-term strategic plan with money, which is non-existent to most marijuana smokers. Increased desire to improve yourself and others. Develop your witty personality again. If you're honest, if you've smoked weed for, say, 10 years, and you're honest with yourself, I bet you were more of a witty personality, a bit more fun to be with 10 years ago. And again, I'm talking to people that smoke a lot of marijuana, can't seem to stop. I'm not talking to every marijuana smoker. Caring more for other people, become more popular instantly. And, you know, if you're sitting in your little social circles and thinking, well, if I didn't smoke weed, how would I be more popular? That's in your little social circles. You know, you're one person among 7 billion people, and I can promise you the majority of them do not smoke marijuana. More people will tolerate a non-smoking person. 31 and onwards, no paranoia, no indecision, no analysis paralysis. This is the biggest one with people that smoke weed. You just constantly analyze everything, especially to do with your own life. And it's not the best way to get ahead. The best way to get ahead is to take action and learn from the results of your action. 34, less personal insecurities. You look happier and healthier. You feel happier and healthier. Yeah, they're two different things. You increase your presence. Here's the thing about presence. We all have like a frame rate of how often you actually consciously observe the world. When you're normal, it's around 60 times a second you're present. When you smoke weed, your presence goes right down. The amount of times you're actually present in the world per second is something like halved, which means you're missing all types of crap going on around you. You just completely miss it. Have you ever looked down at your watch and saw what the time was, then looked back up and you still don't know the time? This is the type of thing that happens very regularly to marijuana smokers, and it's affecting every single part of your personality. Anyway, moving forward, 38, increased alignment with your spirit. And this is absolutely true. You know, I now meditate. It's something I don't talk about too often because most people don't meditate. A lot of people have some weird perceptions about it. But if you ask anybody that knows how to meditate, if they can smoke marijuana and meditate, you can't. I've spoken to a professional meditation teacher, and what she said was when she smoked marijuana and she meditated and tried to go into her higher consciousness, what she saw was a big wooden shield kind of thing blocking what she can usually see. So a lot of people meditate to get a deeper understanding of not only themselves, but their place in the world and how you are supposed to interact with everybody around you and your overall goal. You know, what is your point of being here? That's what your spirit's all about. It tells you what makes you happy so that you can go in that direction. You know, you try one thing, oh, I didn't like that. You try another thing, I love that. That's the direction you need to go in, right? Whatever it is you love. Now, when you smoke weed, you don't feel these feelings as deeply at all, which means you're much more likely to go in the wrong direction in life. And there are wrong and right directions in life. Some directions make you happy, and that's the right way for you to go. Some directions make you unhappy, and that's the wrong way to go. The problem is with smoking weed every single day, all day, it makes it very hard for you to detect which way you should be going in life. So you end up doing some shit you hate, right? Like the guy that just emailed me, he said, I'm in construction, I want to be in sales, and he's 30, man. He's been doing this for 10 years, something he hates. Why? Because he hates it so much when he gets home, he just smokes weed to escape the world instead of freaking dealing with them. And you know, so many people do this with computer games, with anything, man. How many people do you know go home from work every day and just bury themselves in a computer game or some project they have, and they don't deal with life? 39, increase in certain problem-solving abilities. Number 40, gain respect for yourself. It's called total self-respect. 41, natural highs will increase. So you're going to start feeling that same happiness feeling you get from marijuana from not smoking marijuana, right? And weed will start to bring you down. It's called a change in perception about what you're doing. And that's what we do. We change your perception about marijuana so you can freaking quit it and get ahead in life. 42, no need for sunnies. And I don't know what you first thought of. Tell me what you first thought of. Did you think I meant wearing sunnies to hide your bloodshot eyes? Or do you think I mean, you know, your eyes will be able to resist the sun easier without sunglasses? Because that's what I actually meant. I meant that you will not need sunglasses as often when you don't smoke weed because your eyes can resist the sun naturally, like you were meant to do in nature. When you smoke weed all day, you need those sunnies because your eyes are weaker, as is the rest of your body and mind. 43, no more scary chest pains. Everybody relates to that one. 44, your ability to persuade others increases, and persuasion skills are a really big deal in life, not just for people in sales, right? For example, number 45, the ability to attract sexy time. If you have someone that you are attracted to of the opposite sex, or maybe not even the world we live in today, but if you have someone you are attracted to, you really should be able to approach them and persuade them to spend some time with you. And then hopefully in that time, if you guys are aligned and you are meant to be, you can move on to the next level and get your sexy time, maybe even have a beautifully long relationship. Problem is with stoners, they say, I really like that person, and they never do anything about it. Maybe they go home and overanalyze it. I don't know. A lot of people that come to me in their older ages, 40, 50, 60, that want to quit marijuana, a lot of times one of the biggest reasons is that they have lost their...
But there are worse things than marijuana for your health, physical and mental. And the reason I don't spend much time talking about health is because it very rarely is the reason people quit marijuana.
No more caring what people think. Stoners are the best at caring so much what everyone thinks of them and saying the total opposite. But of course that's not you, so we'll move on. Not worrying about running out. You know, when I smoke weed, it just constantly pissed me off, especially when I stopped dealing it and I had to pay full price like everybody else. And then you get low on it and it's like, you get that feeling, don't you? You don't want to run out, but you couldn't be bothered going to score, and you don't have the ability to save it till tomorrow or anything. Thing is, if you quit weed, you don't have to worry about any of this stuff that occupies so much of your thinking now. 49, improved concentration levels. 50, serotonin levels return to normal. You can process the emotions, right? 51, a straight up increase in all areas of happiness, right? Happiness can be broken down into many different areas. The main three categories are pleasure, purpose, and passion. The thing is, if you don't have passion and you don't have purpose, and you're like 30, or you're getting older and older, you're going to feel less fulfilled. You can't rely on pleasure things to keep you happy. And they're usually just tangible things. How much money's in your bank account? How cool is your car? How much sexy time do you get with girls? How much weed do you smoke, right? Drugs. These are all pleasurable things. No one's denying that. But they don't give you any purpose and any passion. And as you grow older, it's going to mean a hell of a lot less to you. You know, some of the most depressed people on the planet are freaking millionaires because they relied on material possessions to keep them happy, and it didn't work. And you see it all the time. How many super famous people do you know that are totally depressed in rehab centers? Right? It's really, really common stuff because humans don't understand what makes them happy. And if you get it twisted, if you kind of get confused about what makes you happy, for example, smoking weed makes me happy, right? That is a confused thought. And if you have these confused thoughts, it can derail your life so dramatically, man. You'll end up in such a different place in 10 years. People that come to me, what they're supposed to be and what they are completely different things. And what we do is get them off the weed and also help them invest in their own personal development. And instantly it pushes them back on the right path they're supposed to be on, which involves passion and purpose. Suddenly they're so much happier and they can do all these extra things they weren't able to do before. 52, you become more reliable. You show me a reliable stoner, and I'll show you someone that'll be more reliable if they weren't a stoner. 53, no need to hide anything. And even if you don't think you hide anything, I'm a pretty good example. I used to deal drugs, and everyone I knew that. Including my parents, my family, everybody knew what I did. And I didn't think I cared at the time. But still, if my mother would invite me around for dinner and I was busy dealing or busy being a stoner, I would lie. I would make up a story. And she knew it was a lie, but I was doing it to protect her. I would lie to get out of it. Same with work. You know, stoners get sick more often than non-stoners. And that's a fact in itself. But if you look at sick days of stoners, it's off the charts. And I don't think it's because they're always sick with the sniffles at home. I think it's because they'd rather smoke weed than go to work. Or maybe they're having trouble waking up in the morning. It's weed related, right? 54, forgotten memories creep back. This is just an awesome thing.
55 is your sex drive, my friends. Your sex drive will increase. You are going to enjoy sex more. So not only can you persuade more women to sleep with you, but you're going to actually perform better in bed. The girl's actually going to enjoy it, and so are you. And it's funny, you know, because a lot of people say the opposite, but it's the same with everything with marijuana. People can perceive it in complete opposite ways all the time. But I'm pretty damn sure that a lot of long-term, very regular smokers will support me on this. At the end of the day, if you have less oxygen in your blood cells, which you do, you're a stoner. If your presence is lower, if your relationships are cheaper or more shallow, your energy levels are lower, your happiness levels are lower, your confidence is lower, sex is not going to be as good. My friends, sex is good. You want sex. If that's not a damn motivating reason to quit, I don't know what is.
56, improved sense of smell. And that's a common one, but not as commonly spoke about as improved sense of hearing. And I remember probably a week after I quit weed, and I was walking through the mall. It was like 6 people in a line sort of walked past me. And they were all talking about something, and I was just walking the other way doing my own thing. And I remember just being completely dumbfounded that not only did I hear this conversation in the background, right, but I completely knew what they were on about, what they were talking about, where they were going, what the mood of the group was, who the unpopular one was. You know, I knew everything just from hearing these 5 seconds of talk as they went past. Something that I probably always heard but never processed before. Your reticulator activating system, right, it's a part of your brain, right in the center of your brain. And what it does is, say you hear your name in the distance, you're always going to hear that because your brain's constantly looking for things that are relevant to you. So you actually hear tons of stuff, but it's all filtered out by your reticulator activating system because it thinks it's not important to you. I'll give you an example. Have you ever bought a certain type of car? Let's say it was a white van. And the second you buy it, you see tons of this white van everywhere when you never saw it before. So what's really happening? Well, the car was always there, but now your reticulator activating system is letting that information through to your conscious self because it thinks it's relevant to you. Okay, so they're the extreme examples that everybody can relate to. But when you smoke weed, you're filtering out all this other stuff that you really should not be. And it stops you from growing, it stops you from learning, it stops you from developing yourself. No more making BS excuses, right? The excuses you give your job for your shortcomings. The excuses you give your friends for not going to the party. The excuses you give your family for not going to dinner with them. You just make up shit and you do it on autopilot to get out of the things that you think will cause you pain. And the reason that usually you think it's going to cause you pain is because you're the stoner of that group and they're not stoners. So you don't want to be called out on your stonerism. You get out of your social obligations. 60, massive increase in dreaming. And dreams are going to flood back into your life when you quit marijuana. And it's one of the most exciting things you can do because dreaming is your spirit self trying to communicate with you. And almost always what a dream, I believe, is about, it's usually about the gap between where you are and where you believe you should be. I had a guy once, he worked in the government, he wanted to be a writer. His passion was writing, but he had this 9-to-5 rat race job that he absolutely hated. Anyway, he stayed in that job for 20 years. Why? Because he was smoking weed all the time, coming home, not thinking about it, not dealing with life, the usual, right? Anyway, he came to us, we helped him out, he quit marijuana, and subsequently ended up a great writer, by the way. So you know what